Let's go. Hey everybody, good morning. Welcome to Reaper Pro Tips with me, Anne. And unfortunately, disembodied voice Justin is not with us today. He has a ReaperCon meeting every Monday. So you should all be happy that he's in the ReaperCon meeting because it means that things will happen and get done and work digitally. So we shall simply have to play without him today. Unless an emergency happens. But that means that if there's a dog emergency, you guys are totally on the hook to tell any new people that I will be back. It is simply my dog and her butt. Morning, afternoon, good night, etc. Hey, Remain Gray, I have not seen you before. If you are new, welcome. Hey, Miss Imp, thanks for the resub. Grats. Hello, everybody. Hey. Yeah, well, it's a Monday. I'm on. My sleep left much to be desired last night. Sometimes you have it like that, right? It's just up and down. Yeah, so I'm a little sleepy, but I will get through it. Morning is always a better time for me anyway. I have better energy. But what we're going to do today is a bit of base sculpting, I think. Just for a chill morning. Chill Monday. Let's have a chill Monday. How about that? It was on the camera, calorie, and so we will go back to it. So here we go. Actually, yeah, so you feel that. Yeah, glad today's a holiday. Oh, Canadians have a holiday. Oh my. You guys are so, like, lucky. I wish I had a holiday today. But that is okay. So let us go to Minicam. What I'm painting is this. And look, the item number is there. And so is the thing. I lost the card, sadly. Okay, Pocono. Well, thank you. Thank you and goodbye. You can always catch it on the stream later. On the VOD or YouTube. Oh, it's chilly. Yeah, it was 63 this morning here. But it's usually like between 59 and 63 here in the morning. It seems like it's normal. It's kind of like Wisconsin, actually. It's a lot like where I grew up, except it's not as humid. 90 degrees today. Yeah, I kind of miss it, Crowley. I do feel like yesterday it got into the 80s here, and that was acceptable. But in general, I feel California is way too cold in the summer. Maybe it's different down south in LA and San Diego. Oh, you're welcome, Carrie. You made your own tiny spoon this weekend. Awesome! That is so cool. Way to go. Congrats on making your own tiny spoon. That's fantastic. Yeah. We have the AC running in here because there's a Kiri who is very happy when the AC is running in here. So she, with the fur coat dog says, yeah, AC, it's all about it. Finish is a strong term. We got through most of it. I decided, though, that I didn't want, I didn't want everybody to get bored. So I like to switch it up every once in a while. So this is how the Nagendra matriarch turned out, at least at the point. I did say I will probably go back to her at some point to do the metal. Because I'd kind of like to do metallics and show you guys how you have to really, really, really heavily shade and highlight and change your highlight color a little bit if you're going to do, like, a colored lighting effect. But anyway, this is how it works. She's reading very well from the side, even. And the back, I added some blue, indigo kind of color in the shadows to show, like, a blue ambient light. And yeah, so her lighting is working pretty well. Her lighting works pretty well. I'm overall happy with it. I feel like maybe like, there's still parts I need to change. Like, this needs to go darker because it's under the pouch, so it'd have blue just like it is there. So, like, you see the blue here. This needs to not be orange then. So it's all like, like that. The drama. So yeah, so this is the way she mostly turned out, and we haven't finished her tail or anything. We kind of just blocked stuff in. But in general, I'm actually really happy with her. I wouldn't mind, like, actually giving her a real finish, touching up, like, tail and finishing up this stuff. So yeah, we may go back to her in the future. I mean, I've been doing this, right? I've been kind of wanting to switch it up, but I also really like these models, and I'd like to finish them. So we will definitely go back to things like today, even we might go back to Rock Troll because he needs this gap filled, right? And I'm going to be working with green. So if we have extra green, which is almost a certainty, we'll probably go back to him and just green right over this area right here. And I'll show you guys, it's no sweat. Trashrama, thank you for the sub. Yeah. Yeah, it's, thank you. Yeah, I wanted, David was telling me I needed to go cool green with the ambient, and that means going cool blue with the ambient up here. So yeah. She's very nice. I'm very pleased with her. Very pleased with her. So yeah, we finish her. You know, I'd like to slowly finish things on this stream though. So like we haven't seen the last of Rock Troll. We'll totally like finish him here and there in bits. And since a lot of new people are coming to the stream every day, finishing bits of him at a time is pretty good, because then if they missed the part on how I did like the orange tones up here, they just have to catch it how I do it on the hands or feet. You know, so it kind of, and the more we paint something also, the better it looks. So then when people come to the stream, they're thrilled because they're seeing something that's really cool looking instead of a model that's always in like the early beginning stages of painting. Thank you, Carrie Michael Cosby, for the resub. Fantastic. I mean, I like to keep it all at different stages, Tister. I really do. So... yeah, Rock Troll is pretty rad, and I like him, and I want to continue work on the crystals, and you know, there's so much more I want to do. So, and of course, the crystals are never boring, because every time you look at a different positioning of them, slightly how you tackle them is going to change. So, yeah. Today, I figured, I was like, I know I'm going to have extra putty from her, because we're going to do her base a slightly different way. And so it was just like, well, if I have extra putty, what else do I have that I can show? And people always ask me, you know, like, what do you do when you've painted two parts and then you stick them together, but there's a gap? Well, you just green stuff over it, really. I mean, it's not hard. It'll stick to paint as well as it sticks to anything. So, yeah, the key when you've already painted something and you like it is to make your green work very minimal. So not to jar the paint job too badly, so you don't have to overpaint too much. But as you can see, we definitely need a bridger here with these muscle groups to make them look correct. So yeah, so we're definitely going to do that. So that was Snake Lady. Update on Snake Lady. I'm going to put her back 1 second. And we'll go back to like Juliana the Herbalist, and you know, we'll go back to Rocky when I feel like it. Rocky's front is too blue and needs a repaint. You know, so I've got all these minis that I'm kind of working on in bits and pieces. I may even go back to Spirit Beast, since I haven't had much luck finishing her on my own time, just because there's so much else I have to do. I'm launching the new tier on the Patreon today. Those of you who are patrons probably saw my post. So it's an email coaching tier, and it'll launch with 5 slots. And then we'll see from there. We'll see how I handle the workload and how you guys like it. Anybody who signs up, it's $45 a month, because it's going to take a long time to do those PDFs. And I want to make sure you guys get your money's worth. So yeah, that's exciting. That launches today. And I also, if you look at that post, you will want to look at that post on my Patreon if you have not, because it is a post for all patrons. So even you $2 guys get it. And it has a PDF attached to it. It's a PDF on how to take better photos of your models. And I made it public, or I made it for all patrons. And eventually it will be a public post for anybody, free. But I made it for all patrons because so many of you post on the Discord, on my Discord. And even on the Reaper Discord, I guess, if you're trying to post and you want better feedback on your models, the key is to get better photos. You might cringe because everybody can see the mistakes, but that's the point, right? If we can see your mistakes, then we can help you. So I wanted to make sure, because the quality of the photos that I get sent is so important in how well I can coach you, that I did a little PDF just on a few simple tips. Honestly, if you just listen to me on the background color, the lighting, and the distance the lighting is from the figure and where it is, you will take infinitely better photos of your models. So yeah, so if you are a patron at any level, you can get that PDF now. If you give me a week or two, hey Kiri, good girl, can you settle? Sorry, the dog is restless. If you give me a week or two, then I'm going to put it up as public. I'm going to give my patrons first shot at those coaching slots though. And that's usually how I do things. It's like, if anything cool goes up, I give it to the patrons first, and then then everybody gets it eventually, if it's one of those things I'd like to make public. No, Casmania, if you go to my Twitch, which is twitch.com, twitch.tv/paintingbig, you will see that my schedule is now updated on my page, on my splash page. Although I am hosting people now, so that may interrupt it. Tuesdays and Wednesdays are what I'm doing right now this week. Then I should get Twitch affiliate this week on Wednesday. Or after Wednesday, I should say, which is my goal. Awesome. Yay. And then I'll probably drop back to Wednesdays. It really depends on my schedule, but I have a lot of, I just got 3 new commissions from Dark Sword, so I have to prioritize Jim's stuff too. It's all juggling. It's all a juggling act, in case you can't tell, guys. Welcome to being a freelance painter. Like, I always am like, where did the day go? I'm working my butt off. Where'd the day go? But anyway, so yeah, so I'll probably drop down to just Wednesdays after that. Maybe a ninja stream here and there, because I like ninja streams. I like just being able to stream, like, if I'm prepping something and I'd like some company, stuff like that. Yeah, I've got some of the new Song of Ice and Fire, the Targaryens, Aegon the First and his two sisters. So it'll be a lot of black and red and silver hair. So it'll be good. Yeah. Oh, yeah, Dark Sword. I mean, there's a reason I paid for Jim. Other than that, he pays well and he's a nice guy. Is that the models are always nice, right? It's either it's Tom Meyer or it's Jeff Grace. He's always got top-notch people working for him. So, good morning, everybody. All right, so I'm not brushing. I am puttying. So let's get out putty things. Putty things. Tiny spoon. I do not need so much tiny spoon in the beginning, though. I need a bigger spoon, or a bigger chisel, I should say. And I don't really need the clay shaper today, but I'll keep it close anyway. Actually, maybe we'll try to figure out if some of those other clay shapers might be good for this. Since I've gotten more into my clay shapers lately, and I have all sorts of different shapes, I should try to use one of these other guys. Maybe the chisel. Or maybe the angled one. The angled one looks kind of fun. What do they call that? That is called... Because I'm doing stone. It's called the angled chisel. And it is kind of sharp. I like the sharp pointiness of it. So yeah, maybe we'll do that. I'll keep the other ones close just in case. I guess the flat one might be useful. I always had clay shapers recommended to me, but I've only started using them recently. And I do love this taper point one, the rounded taper point one, for smoothing out green stuff. You can just kind of roll it like it's just a rolling pin on its side, and you smooth out the green so nicely. There's no tool marks whatsoever. Really useful on larger models, but that's what I tend to do. So I used it on the 54mm model I'm working on my stream. All right, so let's get out those. Let's try those today. This is size 0. You can see that all of them are zeros. And they are all the extra firm. I've tried some of the softer ones. I have a softer one. I have not found it useful on these models. I could see where it might be useful if you're working on larger stuff like busts. If you're trying to sculpt a bust and you want to really get a softer effect on things like face or skin, I could see maybe a softer clay shaper would work better that way. But I have not... yet experimented with that yet. Yeah, the angled one should be interesting for this. Traumahawk, thank you for the resub. Awesome. Yeah, for trying to do any green stuff work, unless it's very big and you're going very subtle couves, I would imagine that it wouldn't work. It's sadly, it's just green is too firm. No, even very yellow green is too firm for the soft ones. However, if you do any softer clay, if you do any Fimo that's like really warmed up, you may get better mileage out of that because anything is going to leave a tool mark on those suckers. So the soft ones are probably meant for that sort of thing when you don't want texture on actual like oven bake or regular clay. So it still may be useful to you down the road depending on what you're doing. There are plenty of times I've used like Fimo to sculpt larger bases for my models. So. Oh, yeah. Alrighty, so there. So we've got green, we've got our stuff. I want a big chisel. Let's see here. Which chisel shall we use? We have our traditional chisel wax. These are more like wax sculpting tools. And they are very useful. So I like to use this shovel one a lot, the chisel. Like it. And I also like this more rounded chisel one that's more of a leaf shape. Can also be good. It has a nice edge to it. Both of them do. So if you need to cut off part of your green or snip it off or really slice it or compact it, then those are good. And let's see. Anything else? I think that's pretty good. I think don't know where some of my other sculpting tools went because, apparently I can't keep anything together, even though it's all in the same drawer, which is pretty sad, guys. Pretty sad. I'm sure I stuffed them somewhere else. All right, 1 second. Excuse me. It is an allergy day, and I'm going to blow my nose. I'm going to try to do it away from my mic. All right. Sorry about that. I do have allergies. I do take allergy pills, but sometimes there's just stuff in the air here. All righty. Excellent. Every day is allergy day. Yeah. I've got like one drawer, and you'd think I could keep all my sculpting stuff and everything all like nice and orderly in here, and yet I keep losing my wax 5s. And maybe it's because my wax 5s are my least used sculpting tools, and so they just tend to migrate to the back of the drawer. I have no idea. But I guess what's important is I keep my most used sculpting tools around, at least. But I have no idea where my 2 wax 5s went. I have 2, and I lost both of them. This is pathetic. I'm making you all feel better about yourselves, aren't I? I have actually the tissue right over here on the side of my thing. So my allergy meds, I take 1 a day, and that's it, Mike. So if it gets a little bit atrocious, well, I have been known to take 2 a day if it gets really bad, but in general, we're good. All right, green stuff, and I'm getting down to the tail end of this green stuff, which probably means that it's starting to get really, really chunky along the middle mark. But it's still pretty good out around the outside. I'm not noticing any yellow chunks, as long as... You notice, though, that I definitely, as I go, I've been plucking farther away from the center strip with the yellow. There's a reason for that, because the yellow is where you're going to get your chunks, usually, much earlier than the blue. So with the blue, I've been more standardized, and the yellow, I'm very much avoiding that center strip. Although on base work, it's not as crisis if you have a chunk in your green, and you can usually just pluck them out. But I hate to work with them anyway. I mean, I'd rather just have my green actually work. But yeah. Yeah, that's the sad part, Nomad Z, because now if you cough or sneeze when you're out, people are just, like, giving you the look, right? That unnerved look. But yeah, it is what it is. Alrighty, let's see here. I won't blame people for being a little paranoid, especially with all the people out there that have already existing health conditions, or that live with somebody who does. So I do not begrudge them giving me kind of a nervous look if I sneeze, although... Alright, I'm just going to take this off here. Twist off my little projection of green. Plop it over here. I can throw it out later. You want to wrap it in plastic probably before you throw it out, or it will stick to your trash can. You've almost finished your first pack of green stuff. Awesome. Alright, so we need a fair bit of green today. But you can see even there when I pull it away, the blue is still very flexible here, although it's going to be chunky right down the middle. But the yellow is a little bit different. It ages a little bit worse, I think. There. So much as I could go heavier blue today because we're doing base work, but it's just habit for me now to do like a 2-to-1, so we shall do the 2-to-1. Since I've already glued her down and I'm not pressing her into the green or anything, it won't matter. Hey Gaston, how's it going? We are sculpting a base thing today. I decided. So we'll see. This probably isn't going to be enough green, but you never know. Like, the amount of green you see in your hand is deceptive. You start to put it on things and you're like, oh, I didn't need as much of this as I thought I did. So what I want to do with her, guys, is there's 2 options here, because there's 3 technically if you're going to green over the entire base. But she is urban, definitely. She's so fancy pants. I mean, if you've looked at all at the Duelist, she is so fancy pants. And so she's obviously urban, I would think, taking silly noblemen's sons challenges for them, I would guess. And she's an elf, which is cool. But what I want to do is actually, I could just green all around this and make it all cobblestones and kind of bring it down to the level of the base, making her on kind of a rounded mound of cobblestones. But I think I want to make her more on like a step or like a curbside. So I'm going to actually sculpt a little border along the front of this and fill in the back. I probably could have put her a little bit further back on here, since that is the option, since I want it flat back here. I may actually do that. I may actually break her off. The green is also going to serve the function of filling in the slot in this base. This is a Reaper base. Reaper 74023 is the item number. So it's up to me how much I want to do. It also depends on how much front space I want, right? Like right now she's centered kind of over the slot, which is a nice position for her on this base. If I move her all the way back in order to use part of this the back of the base here as just a part of the back of the mini. She's going to go a lot farther back on the base, and I might need more in the front piece to make it interesting. So maybe I won't break her off, because I like her position on the base itself right now, and it's just a little extra green work. It's really not too much. Let me get a little bit in focus here. Let me shove the palette out, because we don't need it at all today. All right. So yeah, if I put her, because she's on a round base, it really won't fill in much of this area at all. I'd still have to green a lot. So I guess it's not worth moving her, because I do want her kind of here. What this does do is if we make a little curb here or something, a little a step or a days or something, it gives us a little bit of front space here to landscape differently. So hand cream, huh? Yeah, I mean, and anytime you use a cream or anything, Mathophile, yeah, Pendrake is 0, or it's extra firm. Sorry. But yeah, that's why I don't use creams or Vaselines or anything like that, is it's like, I want the green sticky quality to stick it to the model, and I don't want to have to wash it afterwards. So there's all sorts of lubricants you can use. I just don't like to use them. All right, so now we're going to make a ribbon. We're going to see how much of this green we actually need for this. We're going to plop the rest over here on our plastic bag or our plastic wrap. Sometimes I plop it on top of the plastic itself that the green is wrapped in. And now we're going to make kind of a worm. I have found it to be advantageous to simply learn to use water to smooth green. Simply because you always have water. You never have to worry about being caught on the road without your water, you know, or losing your water, or etc. So I just got that way. That, and I really don't want to have to wash the mini before I paint it. I want to just go right into it. So kind of a thick snake here. We can always thin it out a bit if we need to. And it's nice and goopy and fresh. Since I've mixed it up, it wants to stick to me more than it wants to stick to the base, but it really only needs to stick to the base a little. So let's try. Let's try the shaper. Let's see. This may be early in the process. I may need a metal tool, but I'm going to use the chisel, flat chisel shaper, to kind of compress our green around and hopefully get it off of the base. When you get it on the base, though, that's when you need a metal. That's when you need something metal to scrape it off of there. Sometimes it pays to just wait and take it off after it's cured. You can scrape it off with a fingernail, and sometimes you just gotta do that. There's no other answer for it. It will happen that you get your green places you don't want it, and you just gotta deal. All right, let's see here. Might need a little more back here. It depends on how much. Oh geez, it wants to stick to everything. So this depends on how much fill area I want. I want to make kind of a little cobblestone border, and I want to kind of have it out here and work it in. So first I need to fill in all this area. So it's just probably this first effort is probably just going to be filling in, making a fill area. Figuring out what I want filled in, where I want the cobblestones, and where I want the border. So I kind of want it to go in a crescent along the front here. I can totally drag some of this green over the top of the base, like I did there, to just kind of fix it in place. That's what I want it. This chisel tool is pretty okay. Like, I can't, I'm forced to work slower. What I'm noticing about the chisel tool is I'm forced to work slower because it isn't as hard as my steel tools. I'm definitely going to need more green stuff. I am seeing that. I'm going to grab a little extra green. I just ordered them off of Amazon. Twisternoma. I just ordered the extra firm size 0 off of Amazon in a set of 4 or 5. I forget. There we go. So mostly what we want is now to define the area we want this step to extend to. Like, define how far front it goes. You probably could take this down and push some of this back, because I can sculpt a little border of stones over the top of the existing base. I don't really need to build out anything in front of the existing base. What I mostly need to do is determine where I want all this. So that's why I'm not afraid to drag some green over the top of the existing base either. If you guys ever saw when we were doing the Dungeon Dwellers PDFs, and I don't know if those are still available, but for the goblins that I did, I actually did a little how to sculpt a simple dungeon base, and it's how to sculpt essentially the texture she's got around her, more or less. It's a useful little, I don't know if it's still around, but it's a useful little thing if you want to sculpt a cobblestone base on something that doesn't otherwise have one. Or if you're taking a miniature, like one of the warlord figures that has a tab and you want to sculpt a base on it. Alright, so let's see here. I want a kind of crescent, but I want it more regular than this. Obviously, this is very irregular right now. But my green has plenty of open time. So the first thing you want to do is get the shape before you even get the details. You want to try to get a nice regular... It doesn't need to be super regular because it is cobblestone. So, you know, people laid cobblestones. They are irregular. If I want to keep some of that texture here, I can just kind of use the edge of this chisel tool to press down on the green and make sure I don't lose that line right there. Oh no. Yeah, that's too bad, Coos. I might still have mine somewhere. I'd have to look it up. It might be on this computer. Yeah, those were really good instructions. Like, all of those Dungeon Dweller PDFs were very good, and I'm betting that people underrated them and didn't save them when they should have. Because they were, you know, they're written by Proctor and Rhonda and me, and I don't remember if Derek did one. Maybe not, because he's been sculpting more than he's been painting. But, and Jen Greenwald, and, you know, it's a lot of, I think David did one too, actually. And they were very, very good. So... And free. That's the thing. How often do you get an awesome tutorial on stuff from one of the greats and have it be free? Hey, you made it, Inara. Good. Oh, are they're there under craft? Good. There we go. So yeah, so you can still go get those. So if you look at my goblin ones, I kind of, I know I did a little thing in mine about the basing. Right now I'm not trying to worry about getting my green stuff flat up against the base. I'm more trying to just set up my shape. I want my shape. I want her on a little bit of a daze or a curb. We're getting there. We probably, and then I got to decide like how much I'm utilizing this and how smooth I need this front curb side, and if I'm going to make the bricks out of this, or if I'm going to put an additional layer over the top of it. And a lot of this is just smoothing. You can kind of see that I've got a fair amount of water. See it pooling down there? Fair amount of water on this so that the surface area is wet and stays wet. Compared to how much you use if you're using a hand cream or a Vaseline or some other lubricant that is not watery and evaporative, you have to use quite a bit of water in comparatively to those other things, but you don't have to ever wash them any, so I'm up for that. And it's not quite, I mean, you'll feel when you first use them as if you can get much smoother results easier by using Vaseline or something like that. And it does make it a little bit more simple. And if you don't mind washing the model, then go for it. And just because I'm annoyed when I have to wash a mini doesn't mean the rest of you have to embrace my foibles. I have enough foibles for anybody. I don't need to share them, really. Alright, so we're getting there, and I'm like, well, my crescent's a little bit off. So I need to question my crescent now and see if I want to actually make it a little bit broader. Because I don't want it to just look like I expanded the oval. I want to actually go a little bit broader there. So we'll do it. Good. Thanks, Vakaroa. I'm glad that you are able to help with that. Yeah, it's good that Reaper's saving a lot of this stuff. I mean, we've had so many good resources produced throughout the years. Some of them out of date. Like, you don't want to always refer back to some of the ancient stuff, because a lot of times we'll have changed what we do, because new things are always coming out, new techniques are always getting embraced. A good example is like the gunk that I used to use. I used to use a gunk mixture to thin any paint I used, but when I started making Master Series, I completely stopped needing gunk because I was already loading Flow Improver into the paint, and I stopped using drying retarder. So because I didn't need it. So essentially, you sometimes you might get a gem on an older like resource, like some of the original LTPKs, but in general, a newer resource is usually better. Has more up-to-date information, more up-to-date materials. Like when I first started doing this stuff, clay shapers didn't exist, you know, stuff like that. So that's why I think, although old resources are still really good, especially for just the basics of painting, like there's some great guides out there that are still perfectly relevant. Whenever you're talking about the specifics of like lighting or specifics of additives or you know, paint lines may be different, you know, things like that. So do reach for up-to-date resources in general. Things do change. They do move ahead. New products come out. New brush lines are created. You know, I didn't even know about DaVinci back in the old days. I was using Winsor & Newton for the most part. Alrighty, so there we go. That's more like what I want. I want more of just kind of a crescent to suggest that she's on like a rounded corner, and that it's not just a circle around her base. So I'm bringing it out and then cutting it off, essentially, making it more of an ellipse. Hold on, I missed a question from Mike, apparently. Vaseline. No, Mike, I never use Vaseline or anything else. I just use water on anything. Doesn't matter, metal tools or not, because I don't want to have to wash the model before I prime it or paint it. It annoys me to have to do that, so I just use water. I've learned to use water. You just need to use more water than you would think. And there I used a bit too much, and I need to get green to stick to green now, so I had to actually use a Kleenex to take off some of that so that I could accomplish that. Yeah, I just use water. I mean, hey, Zambies, how's it going? Oh, no, Madzik, we are so buried. I mean, so buried. Reaper is always so buried. Yeah, Mike, I just use water. I just deal with it. It's all a learning curve, right? So, I mean, when you're first starting with green, it can pay to use stuff like Vaseline just to get the feel, until you get the feel of the green, right? Because you're still getting the feel of the green. But over time, I've found it worth my while to learn to just use water. And I grew very annoyed with having to wash everything. So, and then inevitably I would miss a spot. And then I would try to prime, and the Vaseline would just go, no. And I'm just doing this. I don't really care at this point if my green isn't really blended into itself either. This is setting up the shape. Think of this as an armature that's made of just green. So I want to set up the shape of my basing. And so if it's not perfectly blended in on these blobs here, it's not a big deal. Because I can always put another thin screen of green over the top of them. Really right now, I want my shape. I want the sides to be nice and smooth. I'm going to need more green in the back. So I'm going to be smoothing as I go back here, where it's fit. That's like kind of the back. I just want to be featureless, just because you can paint it black to suggest that it just clips off there. But on the front, I'm going to do a little border of smaller flagstones to show that she's on a curb or where something intersects, like the street or some such. So that being the case, I don't so much care if I've got blended in areas here with my green stuff because I'm planning to put something over the top. I do care if the green is blended in onto the top of these flagstones, so I will spend a little extra time there. And I do need to pay attention to everything on the back side. I've got some gappiness here, so I'm going to have to add more green back there. I like this chisel tool, though, for stone shapes so far, guys, at least for simple ones. When you want texture, you'll have to use a stamp of some sort. I like cork for that, but or an actual stone, if you can get one with good texture that you like. But as far as flattening out this area, I like it. All right, I'm going to leave that for a second. I'm going to go around and fix the back. Good morning, overall. Oh, I brush on primer over it, lady. Honestly, if it's nowhere near where anybody will touch it, I won't even prime it. I'll just paint it. And brush on primer is really good for this stuff. And for things like the troll, where I need to green stuff this gap here, I wouldn't even prime it, probably. I just paint it. If it's not on an area of the model that's going to get touched, it's probably not going to ever rub off. People overthink these things a lot. I mean, I may be somewhat lackadaisical in that my conviction has always been I painted it once, I can fix it twice, you know? And I don't sweat it. I don't worry. I mean, minis are going to, especially metal miniatures, they're going to wear. They're going to chip. Something little tiny will rub off, just deal. I mean, I can't even keep my primer, like, perfect. So if I really care, then I'll brush on seal it at the end. And even then I know that I'll probably still suffer rub-offs. If I get really annoyed, I can always, pardon me while I grab I'm making a thin snake of green stuff here. If I get really annoyed, I can always take some brush on gloss sealer, apply it over the, after I repaint the rub-off area, and then do a really focused dull coat. You can always mask off parts of your miniatures. You can use plastic wrap to mask it off. You can use poster putty to mask it off. One of my favorite things to use is silly putty to mask it off. I don't really care what happens to my silly putty, and it was super cheap, so I think I've got it over here. Yeah. So I actually have a tube of silly putty, or an egg of silly putty, I should say. I don't like it when I get primer or paint in my poster tack, because I reuse it so often, but I do not care about my silly putty. So silly putty can get primed over all it wants, because I really just use it for masking. So you can mask over parts of the model that way if you want to. Like if I wanted to reprimer, I could put silly putty over her face and her hands and, protect them. Though the hands are only base coated flatly, I don't really care. But the face is painted, so. I used the face as a demo model for an earlier thing for the Patreon. Alright, so I want a little bit of extra green back here, so this is what I'm doing. I'm making a thin snake of it, just like the thick snake I started with, only this one is not going to go all the way around, and I think I'm going to have to loop it on itself a little bit, because that's a really thin area, and I need more there. So that. There. Alright, so we'll just work with that. Yeah, Godslayer, ask a question. If you're not using Vaseline, Coobs, it's just putty. Use thick paint just like with bones. Yes, and hello everybody who just came in. But yeah, ask away, Godslayer, I'm watching. I have many answers. They may or may not be truthful. They may or may not be accurate. I do try, though. I do try not to confuse people. It's my hope to add light to the darkness, not to add further darkness. We don't need more darkness. We really need happiness and rainbows. So I'm just pushing this down into this. Again, you don't need to be perfect here. You can always put a thin screen of green over whatever you do. Think of it as an armature. If it happens to turn out good enough to be more than an armature, awesome. But don't sweat it. Ah, okay, yeah. Yeah, giveaways, plural, at reapermini.com. Include your tag, so Godslayer726, exactly as you spell it on Twitch. Tell them what you won, a Gurgi giveaway, and on what date, and give them your address. And hello, Gorilla Nuts. How are you? We are greening today. I felt green. It's not easy being green. But yeah, I've been doing a lot of green lately, I know. I feel like partially that's just that's what I'm working on. But partially I feel like with all the digital sculpting out there, green work is an endangered species. And so since it still is the best way of doing conversions and add-on bits to miniatures, it's good to talk about it on stream from time to time. So now I've got a little bit of extra back here. That's good. I will need to smooth it out. I'll need to figure out if I want to use the clay shaper for that or something else. I want to go back to the front because my green is going to start setting up shortly. So after about a half an hour, you got to go back and go, all right, let's get this shaped the way we want it, or at least mostly shaped the way we want it. And it depends on the temperature. Also, if you're working like in a really warm room, the green is going to start setting up and skinning over faster. Once it starts skinning over, you can no longer blend it in. It's just like, it'll always leave a little ridge, a little edge. Yeah, and green can be intimidating, you're right. Oh, wind and rain. Fun, not fun, Dogfather. Hope you stay safe. The key in Nomad Zeke is not to let it intimidate you and just to break it down into small steps. Just do one small step at a time. You can always do one small step at a time. And treat it in your head as an educational opportunity. Like, that's important. Mindset is so important with this hobby in general. People get very nervous about trying things. But in reality, with green, if you just treat it as a learning opportunity, like go into it thinking, okay, I'm going to learn some stuff about green today. I'm going to learn, how much I can mush it. If it's more yellow, I can learn how long it takes it to kind of start to set up when I'm working with it. I can see which tools have which effects. There's all these cool things, and you look at it as part of your ongoing education in the hobby, adding things to your toolbox. And if you go into it with that attitude, intimidation is no longer a factor. You're learning, so there are no mistakes. And I will tell you from my own experience, being just as nervous about green stuff, that if you go in with that attitude, and if you also tell yourself, if I go slow, it's going to be okay. If you go slow with the green stuff gives you time to go slow. You have, a half an hour to work on one little thing. And you know what? If you don't like it, you can slice it off and do it again. So it's like, if you go slow with green, you're going to find that you can gently correct yourself until you have something that you like. The key is never to go fast. Never, ever. When I first started with green in college, I wanted to go so fast with it. I was so impatient. And so I never really learned how to work with it very well because I was impatient. So the key is learning experience. Don't be impatient. You can be impatient with a lot of things in mini painting and still come up with okay results, but green stuff is a creature that responds well to slow development. I mean, look at how I've just been gently working on the front of this base. It's still only been, 45 minutes, not even 40 minutes since I really started. Less, actually. It's probably only been about half an hour. because of we always have a little chat time before we start jumping in. But by going gently with it, and I'm just putting just the very gentle pressure here on the front of this. Because I want the shape to be good. I want a nice, more or less smooth lips. So if I look at it and I look at my little crescent here, look at the crescent of black that is left, it is more or less regular. And she looks like she's got this arm slightly forward, this foot more toward the front of the base. And that's good. Like when you've got a flat figure like this, pose her a little bit off angle. So that, like, I pretty much am looking at her face as being the front of the model. So the rest of her is tilted slightly away from the viewer. And when you've got a flat figure like this, that makes it much more dynamic. It's more dramatic that way. So play to that, because that's the way she's been sculpted, with her head turned just a little. So, and with this sword more front, it makes sense for this sword to be the one, you know, it's in front of the leg instead of slightly behind the leg. So it makes sense for the body to turn this way. So you can pay attention to this and get a little bit more of a dramatic pose. Yeah, so just a little bit then, Nomad Zeke. And keep in mind, when you're doing that, yeah, most things you can fix. You can always cut it off. Although I find, Gren, that if that really discourages you, because some people going back and cutting off or repainting something really takes a lot of oomph out of them, right? A lot of creative oomph. But Nomad Zeke, if you were going to do that, and essentially, if you're sculpting clothing items or sculpting things on it to make it converted, think about it with your first layer being the armature. So instead of sculpting a fancy shoulder pad, sculpt a little block of green that you can sculpt over the top of. That is the right shape. That's easy, right? That's a simple thing. And then when you get to sculpting like the little braids that hang down and stuff, that's the harder thing. But if you've already got blocky shape, it's not as hard. And always remember, if you're doing that your armature needs to be slightly smaller. Just slightly, depending on how thin you want to work your green. Green stuff with foam board, yeah. Yeah, foam board can be a good base, just like cork can, right? Methophile, it's very similar. It's you're using foam instead of the cork, but it's the same kind of spongy, easy to work with, easy to cut, easy to shape. Medium. So yeah, I used to like foam core a lot. The only thing I don't like foam core about foam core is that it will warp when you paint it. Like moisture will make it warp. And that's the downside. But if you're using very thick foam core, you probably can get around that. Yeah, exactly, Gren. That's exactly it. That's what I'm doing here, right? I might not end up using straight up any of this green stuff. I may put a very thin skin over the top of it once I've got my shape. But I wanted to make sure I had all of this blocked in first. So that I could work over the top. Now, I will try to smooth out this back part. And sometimes smoothing is easier as the green starts to get set up. As long as you've got it all blended in. Because the green is more resistant to holding your tool strokes at that point. It's going to... it's not going to deform as easy, I guess, is the way. You can still make tool marks in it easily. But in general, it won't affect the area as much. Like, it won't distort the area. So, like, when you're sculpting hair, if you're trying to correct or add hair to a figure... You actually want to set up the shape of the hair and the basic locks of the hair sometimes, but you don't want to put like strands, the fine strands in until the green is more set up, because you don't want to like press and distort what you've already done. So you wait for the green to set up before you add those fine strands so that if the green stays the same shape. So right now I'm just using a bunch of water over the top and I'm smoothing out that surface. Good morning, Otter Mama. Oh, good. Yeah, Dogfather. I'm in that situation as well. Kiri is a cancer survivor. All right, let's get this close. So, I've still got a little bit of green texture. Just a little in there. But this is like the back side of the figure, and I'm going to paint it black. So I'm going to keep smoothing it. Yeah, I mean, that's part of it with different putties. Look at that huge puddle of water I just put on there, by the way. Gigantic puddle of water. But it's okay, because you know what? I can do this now because I'm not adding any more green. Now I'm just refining what I've got. So I can throw a gigantic bubble of water at this model at this point, and it will work for me. It'll essentially allow me to smooth things very nicely And I don't have to... The only problem with adding a bunch of water when you're still working with additional green is that then you've got to wick it off if you're going to add anything over the top, right? Because once water gets underneath a layer of your green, it's doom. Because then your green won't stick, right? I still have that happen from time to time if I get impatient. Again, we come back to the whole, you got to go slow with green. If you're new to it, if you're old to it, like you've got if you've wrangled green for many years, then you may be able to get away with a little bit of impatience. But in general, the best way to tackle green is slow and steady wins the race. It's all this like green work does make me want to try sculpting something though, like really sculpting something. It depends. Some of them means that they're a subscriber to the channel. Gorilla, and some of them are I think is there a Discord icon? Like I think the Reaper skull is sub. I don't one of them is Twitch Prime. The light blue one is Twitch Prime. So if you have a Amazon Prime account, you actually get a free Twitch sub, Gorilla. I don't know if you knew. So you can use that without having to pay more. We welcome your Twitch subs. So this called Twitch Prime is essentially an affiliate program. So every once in a while I remember to put my Twitch Prime on a streamer that I really enjoy. And Twitch Prime doesn't auto renew, so you can give it to somebody new every month if you want. Alrighty here. We're getting pretty good here. If I feel like I'm doing well, then I may try... Oh, the sword is for mods. Yeah, well, I'm thinking about doing busts, Gren, so I really love painting them, and I really would like to sculpt some ideas I have. And again, I figure if I just go slow, I have lots of anatomy books, I have lots of drawing books, you know, I have a 2D art background, so I have some excellent books on facial expressions and sculpting and painting faces and just anatomy. So I thought a bust might be a good start. And I probably would do it in Fimo, I figure, because that way I can go back to it. I found I've had more success with Fimo with big body parts. I had to sculpt a new hand for a bust. And it actually worked, but only in Fimo. When I tried it in Fimo and green, it didn't work so well. Alright, so we smoothed this out pretty well, guys. I need to maybe smooth it a little bit more back here. Again, I can add I can come back in with just a thin bit of green stuff, but I kind of want my green to at least stretch over the back of the space right now, so kind of pushing it with my little chisel tool here. I do like the chisel tool for this sort of thing. I have to say now, I'm finally getting use out of my clay shapers. I'm thrilled. I've had them sitting in a drawer for a while. And I always liked Tiny Spoon better, and Tiny Spoon is still my bestie. Don't get me wrong here. But for big smoothing projects like this, I have to say I'm liking these clay shapers. Alrighty. Oh yeah. Yeah, therapy dogs are special. I had Leo, my old boy Leo, who passed away before I moved out here. He was a therapy dog for a while. We did nursing homes. If you're going to do a therapy dog, one thing I will recommend is get your dog started early if you can. Like, take them to, if you're going to do nursing homes or hospitals especially, see if you can get permission to come in with the dog as a pup to get them used to the environment. I don't know. I find drawing much easier. But then I've been drawing since I was like 4. So Ariana, yes, Ariana dolls. So I find, I don't know, I suspect I will find drawing a little bit easier than sculpting. We'll see. Although I will tell you that, working with miniatures, just painting them alone will give you better chops for sculpting. Like, because you're used to working in 3D. You get used to seeing how things go on, right? How the shapes that you are painting kind of stick in your head. So yeah, doing like painting. Hey, Achilles Blade, how's it going? Oh, that's cool, Dogfather. But yeah, so you get used to certain shapes and forms and stuff when you're painting miniatures, and so when you try to transition over to sculpting small things, I think it makes it a little easier. Alrighty, so now I have to question what I'm gonna do here. Got a big drop of water back here. I think I've got this pretty smooth. It's probably gonna paint up just fine. Let me see. Let me roll. I wonder if I can use my rolly tool. Where's my rolly tool? Rolly tool. Let's see if I can use rolly tool. If I can roll it over the surface. Oh, I can kinda. Rolly tool is really useful for making things really smooth. I find that if I roll it over the surface, I just eliminate tool marks. I might get a slight up and down, but I'll get rid of some of these flat areas where they've got kind of a layover texture. See how smooth that is now? Like you can see a little bit. I've got a little bit, but now I bet I can take my flat tool in and smooth this way, like petting a cat. Really gently. Yeah, so I think a combo of those tools, like, because I had some overlap texture going on, but when I use roll tool, and just roll it, like don't pull it along the surface, actually roll it. And it really smooths, like I've been continually amazed at how this tool continually smooths out green stuff. It is really good that way. It's just amazing at how much it takes down that texture. Yeah, drawing is different. I mean, drawing and sculpting are definitely different. You have to think differently. I think that painting and sculpting, as far as miniature painting and miniature sculpting, are very closely related. There are a great many miniature painters who have gone on to become very good sculptors. Werner Klock, Derek Schubert, Christine Van Patten is the latest one. That you just painting this stuff in 3D, painting tiny statues, I think gives you a good grasp of how things go together and what they look like, what a miniature looks like. And once you internalize that through years of painting them, I think that sculpting them then becomes a little easier for you. Drawing is its own beast, though. You are right. And drawing is what I started with from a long, long time ago. So yeah, it is. Everybody's brain works a little differently, right? Right, Trauma? Like, I always hated, in a lot of ways, my drawing style because it was very cartoony. But now I no longer complain about it because it's like, I think it works quite strongly for certain things. I mean, I'm never going to be, I don't know, I don't want to say that because my style, I understand now that my style can change, that I can change my style, I guess, you know, with effort and consciousness, mindfulness. I used to just despair because I thought I was doomed to being a cartoonist. But these days, I'm not so sure. Your brain works a different way, but you can always teach your brain a new thing. To look at something a new way. You can put on different glasses in your head. I think that we should all seek to put on different glasses from time to time. I think it helps us grow. Like lately, I've been working a lot, very hard on grokking lighting a lot better. Like having a lot better internalizing the way that light works. Which, since I have a very good grasp of NMM, has not been as hard as I thought it would be, but I'm still working on it. I'm still not as good as David is at it. He's just very good at light. Because you're already, yeah, Grant, exactly. You're already in the 3D mindset because you're painting something that's 3D, right? Exactly. Yes, exactly. So, I mean, that's kind of why I hope if I can understand lighting, and also understanding lighting will help my 2D art, which I'm slowly kind of inching back toward doing. I've been really, really wanting. It was one of the things I really wanted to do when I moved out here is find some time to do some 2D art again. Make some time, I guess. And I'm slowly getting there. Probably only on the weekends will I have time for it, because everything else is... I'm a very busy person during the week. Never let it be said that freelancing does not make you super busy. It's like never have I had to time manage better than I'm having to time manage with freelance artwork. Having to really, really manage my time. So it's a good thing that I like to make to-do lists. That's all I'm saying. All right, so I've used my Rolly tool to round off this back. Look how nice and smooth that is now. Rolly tool. I'm just going to call this Rolly tool. It is no longer taper point clay shaper. It is Rolly tool. Rolly tool is awesome. Now, I could use Rolly tool to tackle the front, but remember, we want to actually have a little cobblestone border here. So let's see here. Can I do that now is the question. I might be able to. I think I might need to mix up some new green though. So maybe we need to do, we need to set her aside for a second and use our leftover green to fill the gap here with this guy. Freelance is like, Shadow Raven, you do need to be very active, very proactive about giving yourself downtime. I definitely tend toward workaholicism. And with me, it's hard. It's a hard thing, right? Because I work in the same thing that I use for enjoyment. So sometimes drawing a line can be very, very hard. And then there's all this kind of tertiary stuff, like, you know, if I want to work on a piece of 2D art for my website, for my writing, like, is that work or is it fun? It's both, right? So there's all this crossover. It gets very hard sometimes. Sorry, I'm going to try using clay shapers to do this, guys. Just for fun, because I'm using them lately. So I've got this little piece of green stuff, and I'm putting it over the gap that I want to fill. I'm going to squish most of it down into that. I'm using this chisel, this fine chisel point one. It's triangular. You can see it? See the facets? And I'm going to use the chisel to put a lot of this green down into this crack. And this is where having a firm clay shaper is important. Especially because this green is starting to set up a bit. So I'm taking a chance here on using green that is a little bit more firm and set up to see if I can still blend it in. But at any rate, I'll be able to use it to fill this crack. And I want this crack filled because I want these muscles to come out. Now, one thing about the green not being as goopy is that it's not as sticky, which means I can continually push it off of the paint job and kind of push it down into the crack where I want it. And it's not sticking to my paint job, which is nice. If it was much goopier and fresher, it would totally stick to the paint job. So I think I do need to slice some of it off because it's not wanting to go real deep into there. So now I'm going to get my tiny spoon out. I'm going to wet it down and I'm going to chop off some of this stuff. Just kind of scrape it off. You want to be gentle about this, obviously, because you don't want to mar your paint job. But you do want to take your excess off of there. So you don't care about it if it rips or anything. You can work with it. I'm going to use my tiny spoon because it's a little bit more firm. Well, a lot more firm since it's brass. I want to be sure that I don't lose track of where my muscles are. And I may need to go over the top of this with a very thin skin of green to get it to blend in and to really go over the muscles. We'll probably need to repaint the muscles, but that's not a big deal. I've got a lot of this olive to do yet, so I know that I'll get the olive out again. At that point, it's just a quick adjustment. Probably would have needed to repaint it slightly anyway, because these were so much brighter, you know, these are much dimmer going up onto the shoulder. There was a gap left. Syaria. There was a big gap here. So essentially, I didn't fill it before I started the troll because I thought it was just going to be a demo model, but then I got to like it a lot and decided I wanted to finish it. So at that point, fixing the gap became important to me. So since I had already painted this area, the answer is to green stuff it after the fact, which is not a big emergency. Uh-oh, Kiri emergency. All right, guys, my dog needs to go out. I'm going to take her out really quick. Please entertain yourselves for a second while I do that. We will... Hello, peeps, I'm back. Whew, alright. Sorry, that was an explosion. David had to stop and help me. Kiri, sadly, because she had radiation treatment toward her hind end, definitely has an unpredictable colon, shall we say. She tries her best, but she is an old dog, too, so sometimes she thinks she's done, and then she's not done. So, yes. Oh yeah, we totally should have Nurse Sophie with a mask. I think that would rock. Good idea, you guys. I hope you tell Ron this stuff on, like, Thursdays. Or tell Reaper John to, like, tell Ron. Sometimes that's more effective, because I know they're always babbling at each other on Thursdays. Sometimes informatively. So you may not want to interrupt the updates with questions. So, Rolly Tool is helping us. Rolly Tool is helping us get a nice smooth finish even on this old green. Yeah, Kiri had anal sac adenocarcinoma, so it meant she had a cyst that was growing in one of her anal sacs, and it is a very aggressive cancer. And we were very happy that we discovered it very early, because it easily could have killed her. But luckily she is a licky dog, so you can totally tell when part of her is irritated, and it was near the surface, so we were able to identify it and get her in, and we actually did radiation treatment for our dog, which we totally would not have done, save that we had pet insurance that could afford it. Essentially reimbursed us about 90%, because it's not cheap. For humans or for dogs. Yeah, well, me too. I've got Crohn's trash, so I gotcha. Ron doesn't listen to anybody. I mean, it took me, like 14 years to get him to, like, do a couple of kitsune. I've been asking for kitsune since I started at Reaper. And I think it was actually Derek who finally sculpted them. It's almost more useful to ask the sculptors to do something. So yeah, so there we have just filled it. We have not sculpted the muscle connections though. So, and that's another thing, another example of kind of treating your first layer of green as an armature when you're doing these things, is first we needed to fill the gap. Then we can come in with small blobs of green and sculpt them into muscles. Now to do that, I probably am going to want to mix up fresh green. I'm going to want to let this set for a tiny bit, although it's already was half cured. Hey Raid! Well, thank you, Roll to Explode! And hello, Raiders. We are doing green stuff today, which is putty. So we're creating a new kind of base on this lady, because her own base is very tiny, and so I wanted to expand it and make it fit the plastic base. And then we also had some putty work to do on Mr. Rock Troll, since I decided that I wanted to actually finish him eventually. That means that the prep things that I totally ignored at the beginning of the project now need to be fixed. So yeah, we were just I had some green that I'd mixed up for her base, so it was starting to get older. So it's starting to set up, and I figured I would use part of it to fill this gap. But as I was saying, with this sort of thing, you usually want to use your first layer of green as kind of an armature to work your details off of. So I want these muscles here to connect across the shoulder, because I'd painted them that way, but then we had that big gap. So I want to sculpt these muscles across here, but I needed something to hold up this area first. Like if I tried to just squish on muscles when everything in the green stuff was all soft, it would have been very difficult. But by bridging the gap with this older green first, the older green for one is going to cure very quickly because it's already half cured itself. And it's going to set up a nice firm area that I can then sculpt these muscles over. So thank you, Achilles Blade. I do okay. I really don't like liquid putty. I really, really, really don't, Trash. Not for creating firm forms. It's so goopy. Like, sculpting with it? I can't imagine. It would irritate the heck out of me. I want something that's firmer that I can actually do shapes with easily. what I used to use for gap filling is Aves Epoxy Sculpt, and I still do like Aves, although I don't have any right now because it goes bad, and when I order a big tub, it feels like I use 5% of it. So I don't have any at the moment, but Aves is nice because, like really fine Milliput, you can add water, and when you add water to smooth it, it actually liquefies it a bit. So you get the best of both worlds, I think. But I find that the liquid putty products are very limited in what you can do with them. I would rather have a product like Green that I can use for a whole host of things, or even Aves, because Aves is also good at doing blocky forms like the base that I did on this Duelist. That base that I am doing on the Duelist. So Aves is good for two things. You could keep it thick or you can thin it a bit. And so I don't like unitaskers in general. I don't like stuff that's only good for like one thing. And liquid putty products, I mean, I used to try those a long time ago and I just was eternally frustrated with them. And I try to avoid anything that frustrates me. We have enough frustrating things in this hobby. Yeah, bye, Gorilla. Thank you for making part of the show. It was good to see you. All right. So, yeah. We have a mustache. I didn't see where the mustache rolled in, but you just said, hello, Thelrun mustache. Zambies, therefore, there must have been a mustache that I missed.
Hello, Miss Anne.
Hello, Justin. You missed the dog emergency.
Oh, we had a dog emergency?
Yeah, we had a dog emergency. Kiri exploded.
Oh, no.
Hey, roll to explode. Your raid came at a timely. Except you were a little late. The dog explosion happened slightly before you rolled to explode. My dog, yes, dog had explosion, but that's all right. We you missed it by like 7 minutes. It's all right, Justin. How was the meeting?
It was long, but then I ended up kind of doing a bunch of other stuff like inventorying all the stuff we had that came in for the new studio and
Ooh.
touching base with yes, we have a bunch of
Toys.
new things.
Toys.
Yes.
Toys. I know you. Justin's like hee.
Yeah, I got to talk to Ruben about kind of the status update over there and kind of get some input on, soundproofing and stuff.
Yeah, cool. Image of Betrayal. This is my first time using the clay shapers. I wouldn't say that they are better. I would say they are different. I really some people do all their sculpting with these things, and I can see how you could. I still, for some things, find that I want my tiny spoon, though. The things that I don't use very much anymore are my big metal sculpting tools. I tend to use, I'm slowly sliding toward clay shapers or tiny spoon. But there are some applications where I still want a big flat chisel or the other one I like is giant spoon. So giant spoon and tiny spoon are friends. So like I like spoons. Spoons are good for flattening down things. But I think that for more soft putty, that the clay shapers work pretty well. And I really like I said, I really like Rolly Tool. I really like my my taper point for just rolling over green. It just has this great way of smoothing out the texture. You said emissaries. Apologies if they made a mess. Even be a good girl next time. I didn't know that Kiri was secretly a servitor of Roll 1 to Explode. Now I know. But yeah. So, I don't know. So, I think I would say, Image, that as far as smoothing green, these clay shapers are really good at it. Like, just based on Rolly Tool and then using the chisel tip one, this one, to smooth the back of this after I used Rolly Tool on it. I'd say, yeah, really good. Really good. So, they're not that expensive. So, I think that these are a little bit... They're good at smoothing green because when you're using a metal tool, it's so hard that it's easy for it to leave marks, sculpting tool marks. So these are good for smoothing. I would say I use them less for sculpting. I think for sculpting, I'm always going to reach for a tiny spoon or more of a hard tool for blocking in shapes. But especially for putty that's set up a bit. But that for smoothing green, I really like these. I really, really do. So for those who missed earlier, they are the extra firm variety of clay shaper, and the size is 0. Alrighty. Yeah, so I've been playing more with my clay shapers lately because I've been just experimenting with them more as I have time to do so, and I've been doing a lot of green stuff lately on stream. So yeah, so we're going to let that set up, and what we'll do is take fresher green over the top of it to smooth in and get those muscles so that they're actually, like, you can see they're concave. The area is concave right now. It's scooping out. And of course we need those muscles to be more raised and bridging the area between this big shoulder and the pectoral here. So we will do that next time. And yes, I'll probably have to repaint it. Not a big deal. Not a big deal. It's just a little space, and I've got so many other areas that I still have to do green work on for this model. So I don't think it's going to be a big deal. Although I can see I had a bit of paint rub off. Oh noes! And that's the problem with bones too. Sometimes you'll get that paint rub off or chip off. But touch up, easy. I haven't sealed this guy yet. I could have avoided that scrub off there if I would have put some brush on sealer on him. Hey, we already had snake butt last week, you guys. Alright, so let's see how our green is set up here. I left it alone for a little bit. I can kind of touch it. It's very much skinned over now. It's still a little bit soft, but I think it might be firm enough for me to bring the next layer on. So we'll try to get our... We'll go for it. Why not? We'll go for it. Yeah, those might be good. I was saying earlier, Roll, that I think those type might be good to use if you were like I want to sculpt like a bust face in Fimo with a bit of green, and I think if you were doing something like that with much softer putty too, that the soft ones can be very good at smoothing. But I don't know. I haven't played with it yet. I have a couple of soft ones. I think I've got a smoothie tool one. No, I've got chisel. Well, that's the least useful soft tool, I think. So the one that I have that's soft is actually the least useful. Sadly. Unless I've got a bunch of... I don't know, I have so many clay shapers down here. I'm not sure if I have... I think I do have a softer set. This is the firm, not the extra firm. So I do have a set that are slightly softer, that are the gray tip. So I think maybe I'll try that on some softer putty and see how it goes. I have entirely too many clay shapers is the bottom line here. Oh, I do have some white ones. Okay, so I got a whole bunch. All right, cool. So I actually we can do this. We can do this as a trial, guys. Since I have the soft and the firm and the extra firm, we could actually try a sculpting project and try each of them and see how it works. That might be fun. Oh, I just fingerprinted. No! Happily, my green was mostly set up, so the fingerprint is not really there, but we'll use Rolly Tool just to make sure. We don't want fingerprints. Fingerprints are bad. All right, well, let's do the front of this. All right, little bit of green, of blue stuff. Too much. You guys are entirely too distracted today. It's obviously Monday. So yeah, apparently I went on a clay shaper buying spree. I think I actually did it because I lost my old clay shapers. Like I had gotten geared up to use to give them a try, like I am now, right before I moved out here, and then I realized that I had lost them. So I ordered a whole bunch because I wasn't sure if I needed firm or soft or something in between, which explains why I have 3 separate packs of clay shapers. But now you can all benefit from me being crazy and ordering so many clay shapers because we can try them out. We can experiment with them and see what they are each good at. Well, it depends on what you're doing, right? If you're doing a lot of base work roll one, then it doesn't really matter that you're not using green. Base work or terrain work. Now, if you're trying to use spruce to sculpt like arms and hair pieces, then I'm impressed. Yeah. I got that rolled one to explode. Yeah, I think you do need a metal tool sometimes. I think it's just a thing, just the way it is. All right, now we want to put little cobblestone edge just around the front of this. So we will once again make a piece of green. We will try to make it more or less the same width for once, which takes some work sometimes. Yeah, they have to be kept clean. This is true. But you can scrub off extra green usually with a fingernail. Like, I find it's pretty easy to keep my tools clean between using a knife on the metal ones and a... So we're just going to try to make this more or less the same width. You can pull it out a little bit. The real danger here is it just wants to stick to me. Let's see here. How's that? That's pretty good. Now we will see. Carving is fun. I mean, that's where Jason Whippy started. There's never a should about it. There's a do you wanna? If you wanna, do it. Alright, so now we're going to gently roll this with our rolly tool. I could also just use a regular sculpting tool to flatten it out, but I kind of like my rolly tool. Keeping in mind that our green underneath is a lot harder than the green that we're putting over the top. And really, at this point I need to decide how thick this outer cobblestone is going to be. It's going to determine how much fill space I have, like up front, if I want to put some grass or if I want to put some more like street debris or something. This is not a big base to do a scenic base on, but I wanted something just a little more interesting than just cobblestones. It never hurts to put a few tufts of grass in between or something like that between your cobblestones anyway, little weeds. All right, let's see here. That probably wrapped a little far around there, so I want to roll it back. Roll it back. Oh no. Should be able to smush it. It's still really fresh. Yeah, alright, so we may have distorted that a little bit. This is where the fact that I'm trying to do this before the green underneath has fully cured becomes a problem. I have to be a lot more careful or I'm going to mess up my green that I already did. So ideally, I would do this on a different stream. And this is what I was talking about, guys, about being impatient. In my case, I'm trying to, like, actually get this done for you. But it is impatience. It is not the ideal way to do it. So we may suffer for it. We are trying not to distort our underlying base. We are trying to roll part of this green over the top. Because we want a little cobblestone rim. And we don't want to blend it all in, but we do want it to be slightly raised. We want it to be uniform. We probably got a little bit too thin on the one side and may need to add more green over here. We'll see. May want to do it after the fact, though. So I'm trying to just fade this edge in. But yeah, so waiting until your bottom green is set up is always preferable. So we are going a little fast just for you guys. But that means we're going to be less precise. See, this is what you sacrifice with green. If you want precision, then you need to go slower. Which is counterintuitive, right? You think fast and precise. Learn the force. Yeah, because we're zoomed in so much, Nomad Zeke. Yeah. Yep. I mean, I'm sure that the sprue carving isn't a bad skill set to have. It's going to be good for some stuff. But it's not good for everything. No tool is good for everything. The tool that comes closest is layering, as far as mini painting. You can really layer anything. It's like a universal technique that is always useful. Alright, now I've got to wick that off. So to get If you're going to take green off, that's where your sharp metal tools come in. Boop. Boop. There. Cut it right off with the edge. Ah. Yeah, sometimes doing it right the first time is like speedy. There are times when we overthink things and it does impinge on us doing a good job. There are certain things that do benefit from a just rip the Band-Aid off approach. But in general with the arts, that sort of thing is more a conceptual thing. Like with this, it's more like a hurry up and like jump in, but then slow down once you're in. You may need to go fast and get yourself into the project to get yourself to try something scary for the first time. That may help. It's the rip the Band-Aid off approach. It depends on how intimidated you tend to, how much fear there is, like, of of failing or looking bad or ruining the mini, quote unquote. I don't think we really can ruin the mini. But you may find it that you have to rush into something, but then slow down. Once you're in there, once you're actually working, slow down. All right, so I am rolling out the top of this. It doesn't have to be actually perfect. Remember, these are cobblestones, so I just want to make a little cobblestone rim here. Now I'm going to start to work with not a clay shaper. Not a clay shaper. Now, any flaws that I have in the green on the stonework over here, I can most likely just turn into features because this is stone. So it's going to be pretty easy to just take advantage of irregularities. Yeah, Mathophile. That happens. Here, let me score this. Okay, so little cobblestones. Boop. 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 Just putting my little dings in where my cobblestones are going to be. Boop. And sound effects help. Boop. Yeah, there have been plenty of models like that, Math. I mean, it's not super common for me, but these days especially, I have gotten much more selective about the projects I start. I am much better these days at looking at a project and being able to assess whether I'm going to really be willing to put the amount of time in on it. And until, I finally started prepping my Elven Templar bust this weekend. This one, finally started prepping it. And the reason is that I've been excited about her since I got her. And that was like at least a month ago. Couple months ago, actually, I think. Almost. But I know that I kept thinking about her and I keep thinking about her and I keep thinking about her. And so I know that I am excited enough about her. And now I have a clear enough vision about how to paint her that I'm going to finish her. I'm motivated. I think when I was a younger miniature painter, I would let myself get carried away by a model like, oh, I love it, and start it, and then get really sick of it because I didn't really think it through. And so I ended up just kind of, doing not a great job on it. Yeah, I don't have a shelf of shame now. We don't call it that here. Yeah, Ciaria, isn't it? I love that Templar model. She's so pretty. So, Elven Templar. And I know exactly how I'm going to paint her. It's going to be crazy awesome NMM. Sky Earth NMM. And tons of freehand on the cloth. And I'm going to try some ultra realistic skin tones. I'm so excited. Seriously. So excited. So yeah, as you can tell, I'm so excited. So that's a good sign, right? Part of it too is though, and it depends. You yourself will have your own working style. Sometimes there are people. This will probably be a special offer for the Patreon, Shadow Raven. Like, I've been wanting to pick a model and do some very high-end videos to put out all in a package for joining my Patreon at a certain level, doing a special offer. And I think this is the model for it because I want to do her to a very, very high level. I want her to be probably the new best thing I've ever done. So I will be attempting to document part of that work for the Patreon. And then probably do a $10 tier special offer. So if you sign up just for 1 month for the $10 tier, you can download all of the videos and content. And it applies to, of course, current people who are on the $10 tier. You guys get it for free because you're on the $10 tier. So now I'm taking my sculpting tool and I'm connecting, right? I'm making more. I made a line and I made little indents. Now I'm taking those little indents and I'm connecting them to that back line more. I'm using a fair amount of water. You can see the water is kind of in the cracks there and stuff. Yeah, that's totally doable. Yep, that's exactly what it's meant to motivate. And then, you also get all the rest of the $10 content if you upgrade from 5 to 10. So you get a whole bunch of stuff. Just download it and run if you want to, or stay on for a couple months and see what we doing. I fully understand that the $10 tier, especially in these times, can be a bit of an ask, but it's going to be such a lot of content that I don't think I can do it for 5. But yeah, a lot of stuff that I'm going to try and maybe fail on. We'll see. But I'll talk about it and you'll learn. Hello, Sydney. All right, so we're doing our little cobblestone edge here. I like it already. I will take this time because this green is not yet quite cured, and I'm going to do a little bit of an indent here. And another one over here.
Miss Ann, not to be that guy, but I think we're a little over time here.
Oh, are we a little over time here? Uh-oh.
And that's only important because I'm still up at Reaper and
you have to go home. Justin's going to make us stop, guys. He's going to make us stop. All right.
I want to. You guys are having fun here, clearly.
But, okay, well, let me just show them one little thing here, okay? So I do actually use the edge of Tiny Spoon, a lot. You could also use any sharp chisel tip. Like this tool would even work, even though it's big. If you used the very tip of it, you could get that sharp. I am doing little dots sometimes, not just dashes, depending. But one thing you really want to do, guys, to make this look real is you want to make sure that these are not just perfect squares. So get a little tool with a fine tip, and you even could use, if you have a firm clay shaper with this really fine angled chisel point, this might be perfect. Actually, let me try it. But you want to put little holes. Here, I'm just going to put some water over the whole thing. You want to put little holes and indents on these edges. You don't want them to be perfectly squared off. Cobblestones are slightly rounded. So you might use your chisel tool and just punch in. See? That makes those look more like stones now, because you've punched in that little edge, and now they're not just lines. You've given them a little more dimension. So that's actually a way that this particular clay shaper shape could be quite useful for connecting this back line to this front line, and then making these look more like little cobblestones. See? They're looking more like cobblestones. This is awesome. So anywhere that you want a little bit of irregularity in your line, you could use this little chisel tip to kind of break up the stones a little bit. A lot of this you can also do with paint, remember. So some irregularities you may choose to keep so that you can paint them in. So we're doing pretty well, actually, all on this. Yes. Yeah, see, I like that. So essentially, now I can go in and I can finish out, say, these little bits back here. I need to probably get a little bit of extra green on some of these to make these lines. See, I had to get that line in there. I need to carry these lines back. And the green, the back green that I did early on, notice is still soft enough that I can do those indents now. Like, green will take over an hour to fully cure in a cooler environment, especially, and this isn't, I've got my AC on. So you can still do these little indents in here and touch up your cobblestones a little bit up to a certain point. So there you go, guys. It's a little bit rough still. I'm gonna just clean it up a little bit with the next 10 minutes off camera, but you get the idea. And now she looks like she's standing more on a curb, which is what I wanted. Yes, we're gonna be nice. Oh yeah, and we were supposed to ask you and John to tell Ed and Ron that we want to nurse Sophie with a face mask. Justin.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Isn't it? Yeah, you should totally tell the Ron that the chat demands The chat demands a Nurse Sophie with a face mask. So, yes. Awesome. All right, guys. So there's your deal. We've done the whole thing, even though we probably should have waited a little longer. But there we are. So, and now I feel like in the front here, guys, if you want it slightly irregular, you can lay down a thin skin of green, or you can leave it flat. If you leave it flat, but you don't put any landscaping in it, it is going to look a little artificial compared to the organicness of the base up here. So do be aware of that. So you may want to put in just the suggestion of pavement stones down here if it's a street, if she's in an urban environment. Okay? Alrighty. Yes, have a lovely day, everybody. We will be back tomorrow morning, of course. Today, later, we've got Josh's show, right, Justin?
Yes, we do. At 3 o'clock Central. Sorry, I had a bit of a brain freeze there.
Yes, indeedy. Well, that's okay. I've been brain freezing all morning. Alrighty. Great then. Y'all have a fantastic day, and we will see you again tomorrow morning, I hope. Have a lovely time. Bye-bye, everybody.
Thank you guys very much. We're going to be rating Just Isis. And make sure you guys say hello for us, and hopefully I can get home in time to get that show produced and ready for you guys later. But thank you very much for watching, Anne, and thank you guys for babysitting her. You did a great job. Although Anne was likely babysitting you guys, but thank you guys very much. Keep being awesome. Spread the Reaper love, and remember, it's you guys that make this channel. Okay, you make this possible and fun. So thank you a million times. I'll see you guys later.